Hello, and welcome to Examine Earth. Today, we're going to investigate the question, how many Tyrannosaurus were there? There are several different ways to answer this question, so we'll look at it from a few different angles, including a paper from last month. Tyrannosaurus rex, the tyrant lizard king, needs no introduction. Ask a person to name 5 dinosaurs, and this is probably going to be one of them, very likely the first one. So let's just start answering the question. The first interpretation of this question is, how many species of Tyrannosaurus were there? Well, traditionally, the genus Tyrannosaurus has just one species, Rex. However, there have been many previous attempts at dividing up new and existing T-Rex specimens into multiple different species. It turns out that even in the modern world, it can be difficult to define exactly what species means and to draw hard boundaries between them. There are currently over 20 different species concepts. In paleontology, with extinct fossilized animals, we're usually forced to use the morphological concept. In other words, if 2 specimens have different enough size, shape, and character, they may be different species. Probably the most famous example of this for Tyrannosaurus is Nanotyrannus, the small tyrant. This new genre was formerly proposed by Robert Bakker back in 1988. The primary evidence was the different morphology of some of the smaller T-Rex specimens. This interpretation has not been widely embraced and is mostly viewed as ontogenetic variation. Ontogeny reflects the changes in size and shape through different growth stages. So here you can see how humans change in ratios as they develop. Infant humans have much larger heads and much shorter limbs for their body size. All dinosaurs, even the largest dinosaurs, hatch from eggs no larger than a basketball, so they grow rapidly. T-Rex in particular is seen to change significantly not only in size, but also in shape. Young T-Rex are much leggier with longer snouts, probably more agile pursuit predator of smaller animals, but eventually they grow into the very stout-bodied adults with that famous bone-crushing bite force. Caitlin Schroeder and others in 2021 even proposed that these growth changes were the reason we see an odd gap of medium-sized carnivorous dinosaurs. The younger, larger-sized carnivores fill these roles as they're growing up. We don't necessarily see that pattern in ecosystems that aren't topped by tyrannosaurids, such as the wide variety of carnivores that we see in the Jurassic Morrison Formation, but it is very interesting to think about. However, there do remain some reasons to question the idea of Nanotyrannus as merely a juvenile T-Rex. For example, the claws and hands of some Nanotyrannus are actually larger than even some very mature specimens of T-Rex. It's generally chalked up to variation among individuals or maybe even sexual dimorphism, but it's sort of compelling. A more recent example comes from Greg Paul and his co-authors, published in the March issue of Evolutionary Biology. He worked on Jurassic Park as an advisor and has written extensively on dinosaurs, including Predatory Dinosaurs of the World and the Princeton Field Guide to Dinosaurs. This new paper proposes splitting T-Rex into 3 different species. The split is based on analysis of femur length and circumference as an overall measure of skeletal robustness, and also on the number of incisor-like front teeth in the dentary, the lower jaw. Here you can see the overall trend of increasing body size and reduced forelimb size in Tyrannosaurids from Gorgosaurus to Albertosaurus to Tyrannosaurus. According to the new paper, Imperator is found in the lower parts of the Hell Creek Formation, the older areas with a more robust body and 2 incisor-like teeth, while T-Rex, the king, and Regina, the queen, were present simultaneously in the upper younger portions, right up to the asteroid impact. Each of these species have only 1 incisor-like tooth, with Rex being more robust than Regina. Of course, in modern birds of prey like eagles and hawks, the females are actually larger. This also applies to many flightless birds like cassowaries and emus, but not to ostriches. So maybe the queen should be the larger form. After all, Sue may be the largest T-Rex ever found, and is likely a female, at least according to her lead excavator, Pete Larson. Now, of course, just because a new paper in a major journal proposes 3 new species doesn't mean it's going to catch on in the scientific community. We've seen this story before with Nanotyrannus and even from Pete Larson himself in 2008. Many of the same criticisms of these previous splits still apply here. It's probably not unexpected that over 2 to 3 million years, T-Rex would split into different species. However, with the specimens we currently have, these boundaries are hard to define. Paul and his co-authors even struggled to classify definitively some of the more complete specimens of T-Rex. Now, that's not an indictment on them, but it does illustrate the difficulties in trying to impose these hard boundaries on the natural world. Another way to answer how many T-Rex were there is how many were alive at one time and how many ever existed. Charles Marshall and his team attempted to answer these questions using the maths. Dammoth's law from a 1981 paper by John Dammoth states that larger animals are less numerous because their population density is related to their metabolic needs. Simply put, larger animals need more resources and more space. So if we know the average mass of an animal, we can infer their population density. If we know the size of the range or area that this density covers, we can calculate how many individuals there could be at any given time. The team calculated that about 20,000 T-Rex would have been present in Laramidia, Western North America, at any one time. This number kind of passes the gut check as it's pretty similar to modern large-bodied carnivores with limited ranges like lions. Given a max lifespan of about 30-ish years and reaching sexual maturity around 15 to 16 years, the researchers used a generation length of 19 years. Dividing 2.4-ish million year range by that yields about 127,000 generations of the species. If there are 20,000 individuals per generation, we multiply that out to about 2.5 billion individuals over the entire history of T-Rex as a species. Oh boy, there's that word again. So of those 2.5 billion T-Rex, how many were fossilized, collected, and studied? There are over 40 total specimens, maybe more like 50 now, but only 32 are adults. Using 32 as the number of specimens, that amounts to about a 1 in 80 million chance of T-Rex being fossilized and being studied by science. That's somewhat better odds than the 1 in a billion benchmark that's often cited, including Bill Bryson in his book, Short History of Nearly Everything. However, it's still incredibly unlikely, so every specimen is precious. And the final way we'll attempt to answer how many T-Rex are there is how many mostly complete specimens have been found. Of those 40 to 50 total skeletons, only 10 specimens have close to 50% or more of the skeleton. By bone volume, the famous Sioux specimen is the most complete adult skeleton at about 90%. Sioux may also be the largest specimen, but Scotty's pretty close. Stan is another one of the more famous examples, and is a little bit smaller. It's the 5th most complete adult T-Rex. Stan's also the most duplicated, with about 60 casts on display all around the world. Again, the smaller size and narrower pelvis means Stan's probably a male, and it represents the gracile morphotype. Perhaps ironically, Stan would be assigned to Regina, the queen, under the newly proposed species names. Stan's very well-preserved skull allowed researchers to study details of the physics behind that tremendous bite force. Given the stats of just how rare a specimen like Stan or Sioux are, each specimen is priceless to science. Well, maybe not priceless. It's probably not the right word, since Stan was auctioned to an unknown buyer for $31.8 million in 2020. It was the most expensive fossil ever sold. Sioux also held that record for a while when it was sold for $8.4 million back in 1997. After Stan's auction, nobody knew where the specimen went or who bought it. Suddenly, one of the best T-Rex skeletons was lost to us. Well, the original material anyways, we still have the casts. Many astute viewers of the Manning cast during an NFL wildcard playoff game thought that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson might have bought it. On social media, The Rock has proven to be a very avid geology and paleontology fan, so he was a logical suspect. Mr. The Rock claimed that the skull was not actually Stan, but a cast. This was later confirmed by the Black Hills Institute, which had made the cast. Very recently, after a year and a half of worry and speculation, it was finally announced that Stan will be the centerpiece of a brand new museum in Abu Dhabi. So Stan has a new home and will be in a museum, not locked away in a private collection. I hope you've enjoyed trying to answer the question, how many T-Rexes were there? If you want to know more Tyrannosaurus information, please check out my free dinosaurs video course. Up here somewhere is a link to the Coelurosauria video, and also in the description below. This video discusses the other Coelurosauria, including Tyrannosaurus, Albertosaurus, some of the bird mimics like Dinocarus and Orthomimus, and some more details on T-Rex itself. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see others like it, please click the like button and subscribe to the channel. You can also let me know in the comments below what other topics you'd like to see. That's all for today. Thanks for stopping in to examine Earth.